Hey guys, tonight we embark on a culinary adventure in the shadowy halls of ancient Egyptian royalty, a place where a single spoonful could mean instant death or untold glory. Imagine standing beside the glittering throne of the Pharaoh, a ruler so powerful that entire empires bow beneath his sandals. Around you, golden platters glitter, piled high with dishes that smell so exquisite, even gods would drool. But wait, before your stomach growls with envy, know this. Each bite you take might just be your last. Yep, tonight, you're the Pharaoh's food taster, and let's be honest, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time down in the comments. Let's see who's braving tonight's history lesson. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle slightly, adjusting your thin linen tunic as the vast dining hall hums softly around you. Candles flicker, casting shifting shadows across walls carved with gods and pharaohs locked in endless triumph. The scent of spices, honey-glazed meats, freshly baked bread, and sweet fruits drifts toward you like an irresistible cloud, teasing your senses. But instead of excitement, dread tightens your gut. You are Pharaoh's food taster, trusted guardian of his digestive system, and the last line of defense between the divine ruler and the deadly poisons of his enemies. Your position might seem glamorous at first glance. After all, who wouldn't envy sampling the king's sumptuous feasts? But reality soon sets in, sobering any dreamy ambitions. Every sumptuous dish placed before you could conceal a fatal secret. A bite of roasted duck glazed in fig syrup, it could be a delight, or your doom. That lavish spread of grapes and pomegranates might burst with juicy sweetness, or perhaps conceal a subtle poison, invisible and tasteless, created by cunning assassins lurking in palace shadows. The silence thickens as the kitchen servants bring platters forward. Your throat tightens as you catch sight of the Pharaoh, his heavy coal-lined eyes fixed impatiently upon you. He waits, regal and terrifying, fingers idly drumming against gilded armrests. Courtiers stand nearby, eyes glittering with anticipation, or perhaps malice. Can you trust any of these people? Spoiler alert, absolutely not. Your duty is simple in theory, brutally complicated in practice. You sample the food first, every morsel destined for the Pharaoh's royal stomach. Only once you survive, proving the dish is safe, does he dine. If you falter, collapse, or gasp your final breath, congratulations, you've successfully performed your job in the worst possible way, revealing a deadly threat by your own demise. Ironically, your grim task earns you prestige. You dress better than most palace servants, even receiving minor respect from higher-ranking nobles who secretly pity you behind their smiles. Your quarters are comfortable, your tunic's clean, your bed softer than average. But these supposed luxuries mean little as each meal could seal your fate. Your well-being balances precariously on a knife's edge, quite literally. Tonight's feast exemplifies your daily torment. Golden platters shimmer, laden with foods fit for divinity. Honeyed pastries sprinkled with almonds, stewed lentils rich with cumin, sweet date-filled breads, spiced lambs sizzling gently in rare oils. You might have savoured such dishes once before your promotion, or rather your sentencing to royal food taster. Now each bite is an exercise in existential dread. Stepping forward cautiously, you dip your fingers into a bowl of fragrant soup. Steam curls gently upward, whispering sweet promises and grim threats simultaneously. You raise the spoon, swallowing nervously. A few tense seconds tick by as the liquid warms your throat. No immediate burn, no choking gasp. Your heart rate slows slightly, but paranoia still whispers in your ear. Some poisons act slowly, creeping quietly before shutting down your organs one by one. Next comes roasted duck, crisp-skinned and tantalizing. You tear a modest chunk from the breast, aware that the Pharaoh is watching your every move closely. Chewing deliberately, you wait for any tingling, burning or swelling. Your body remains obediently functional for now. Satisfied, or at least still breathing, you nod subtly. Pharaoh relaxes fractionally, waving servants to serve him a portion. You watch him devour bites casually, oblivious, or perhaps cruelly indifferent to your quiet panic. The feast continues, each dish requiring the same nerve-wracking ritual. You nibble cautiously on olives marinated in brine, figs swollen with honey, and tiny pastries filled with sweetened cheese. By the end, your stomach feels both full and dangerously uncertain, every odd sensation magnified tenfold by anxiety. The Pharaoh, meanwhile, dines peacefully, seemingly unaware of your peril. Historically speaking, you're not alone in this predicament. Food tasters existed across ancient cultures, Egypt, Rome, Persia, all recognizing the simplest truth. Powerful rulers attract powerful enemies, but no civilization mastered paranoia and culinary caution quite like Egypt's pharaohs, whose divine status made assassination attempts both politically appealing and religiously scandalous. You're just another small cog in a grand, dangerous game, expendable and easily replaced. Historians still argue whether tasters were typically slaves, servants elevated by skill, or desperate individuals volunteering for fortune and status. The evidence suggests a mix of all three. Some, driven by ambition or the lure of comfort, willingly embraced this perilous position. Others were chosen against their will, their only chance at survival hinging precariously on a daily gamble with deadly delicacies. Speaking of gambles, your nightly risk brings fringe benefits, albeit twisted ones. You gain access to rare delicacies few Egyptians ever taste. Meats seasoned with costly spices imported from distant lands, wines from secret vineyards owned by temple priests. Your diet is spectacular, though you'd gladly trade a lifetime of lentils and barley bread for one guaranteed safe meal. But hey, at least the grapes are tasty, even if potentially lethal. Your family back home probably envies your apparent luxury, unaware of your grim reality. He eats with Pharaoh, they boast proudly. Such honour, such privilege. Yet you privately chuckle, imagining their reactions if they knew the true cost of your elevated position. Being Pharaoh's food taster grants no peace of mind, no guaranteed safety, and no retirement plan beyond surviving to see another sunrise. Tonight's banquet finally winds down. You release a shaky breath, secretly relieved yet simultaneously dreading tomorrow's inevitable repetition. Servants clear dishes, courtiers scatter into clusters to gossip or scheme, and Pharaoh rises with an indifferent nod in your general direction. Another meal, another day alive. You quietly thank whichever gods might pity you tonight, then silently curse your fate again. Retiring to your quarters, you collapse onto your mattress, staring upward into the semi-darkness. Your mind races through scenarios. What if tomorrow's dish hides a subtle poison, undetectable yet swift? What if the Pharaoh suspects betrayal or incompetence from you personally? Anxiety gnaws your insides like hungry scarabs burrowing relentlessly. Still, despite everything, sleep eventually claims you. Your dreams are predictably troubled, filled with endless banquets where each bite brings agony or death. Even in your dreams, you cannot escape your awful responsibility, forever haunted by culinary nightmares. A cruel irony, really, considering food should nourish rather than terrify. But hey, this is your life, at least until it inevitably ends tragically over dessert. Until then, you survive one bite at a time, literally chewing through dread, tension, and luxury simultaneously. You're trapped, gloriously miserable in your gilded cage. But remember, at least your food tastes pretty good. Well, until it doesn't. Sweet dreams, my reluctant royal taster. You'll need them for tomorrow's menu of deadly surprises. The golden dawn slips through the high windows of your chamber, dragging you reluctantly into another day in Pharaoh's lavish, lethal world. You stretch tentatively, every muscle tight from yesterday's endless tension. Each sunrise used to feel like a fresh start. Now, it only signals another perilous round of culinary roulette. After a deep sigh, you dress in your crisp linen attire, grateful at least that your clothes don't involve tasting beforehand. Glancing at your polished bronze mirror, you scrutinize your reflection carefully. No immediate signs of poison-induced illness. Skin clear, eyes bright, pulse steady, still alive. Check. Let's call that today's first small victory. Emerging into the grand hallways, your senses instantly awaken to the soft chatter of courtiers and the distant aromas drifting from the kitchens. The palace, always bustling, seems to breathe life with its own rhythm, one you've grown both familiar and anxious with. As you pass groups of whispering nobles, conversations hush slightly, eyes subtly following you. You're no fool. Your mere presence reminds everyone that treachery simmers beneath the palace surface. Your next stop is the sprawling kitchens, a chaotic labyrinth tucked far behind marble columns and painted frescoes. Entering, you're immediately hit by waves of heat and tantalizing aromas. Busy cooks, some expert artisans from foreign lands, hurry between stations, shouting commands and warnings. Servants chop mountains of vegetables, grind aromatic spices, and expertly butcher fresh meats brought daily from the Nile shores. Here in this culinary arena, your life's fragility truly crystallizes. Every spice, every ingredient could hide lethal intent, cloaked carefully in mouth-watering disguises. The cooks greet you respectfully, if warily, fully aware your life depends upon their diligence. After all, if you fall, suspicion immediately turns their way, an uncomfortable fact everyone acknowledges silently, like a venomous cobra curled discreetly beneath the cooking pots. Today's menu, you soon discover, would excite even the gods themselves, assuming they're comfortable with the inherent risks. You oversee preparations, succulent quail roasted in honey glaze, savoury lentil stew spiced liberally with cumin and coriander, and bread rolls freshly baked with golden sesame seeds. Your stomach tightens involuntarily as you inspect each platter. Your presence is partially ceremonial. You're here to remind every cook exactly what's at stake. Among these cooks, trust is a scarce commodity. Palace intrigue often begins behind kitchen doors, with ambitious conspirators trading subtle winks or whispers over steaming cauldrons. Remember, assassins need not lurk in shadows. They could very well be standing openly, seasoning tonight's roast duck with a smile. But let's focus on the bright side. Your cautious oversight makes your survival slightly more likely. You carefully sniff and observe ingredients, though let's be honest, subtle poisons are unlikely to announce themselves politely. Still, you reassure yourself, vigilance at least makes you feel somewhat safer, even if just an illusion. Around midday, with the sun high overhead, you retreat momentarily to a shaded courtyard. Here, seated beneath palm fronds rustling gently in the breeze, you nibble nervously on a handful of figs, almonds, and dried dates. Ironically, even your snacks, foods personally chosen, cause mild anxiety. Once paranoia creeps in, it refuses to leave willingly. Food tasters like you exist precisely because of paranoia. Poison was a favourite political weapon, effective and alarmingly common throughout Egyptian history. Even ancient medical texts warned about toxins cleverly hidden in meals, poisons crafted from lethal herbs like hemlock or henbane, substances known across generations of schemers. This expertise was disturbingly widespread, essentially ancient Egypt's version of culinary chemistry, except significantly less appetizing. You relax briefly, leaning against a sandstone pillar. Your fellow servants hurry past, occasionally acknowledging you with quick nods of respect mixed with subtle pity. Few envy your position genuinely. They might secretly savour the idea of royal feasts, but not with your daily existential dread thrown in. You ponder briefly if your predecessors survived long enough to develop routines, coping mechanisms for constant stress. Historians still argue whether food tasters developed secret signs, subtle gestures, or silent codes to communicate suspicion without inciting panic. Some theories suggest tasters even pretended illness occasionally, delaying meals to give themselves time to reconsider a suspicious dish. It's a smart strategy, assuming Pharaoh's famously limited patience didn't result in immediate replacement or worse, execution for suspected treachery. But for now, these are just theories, comforting musings as you gather courage for tonight's feast. Standing again, you brush crumbs from your tunic, composing yourself. Time marches inevitably forward. Soon you'll be standing again by Pharaoh's side, tasting elaborate dishes while holding your breath figuratively and literally. Late afternoon finds you at the throne room doors, breathing deeply as courtiers flow smoothly inside. The dining hall is already bustling, musicians softly playing instruments that weave gentle melodies, harmonizing deceptively with your growing anxiety. Pharaoh himself reclines gracefully, speaking quietly to favoured advisors, his presence filling the room effortlessly. And so, once more, your personal ritual begins, stepping forward, swallowing apprehension, and raising the first spoonful of lentil stew. The spices blend deliciously across your tongue, and you wait those tense seconds, listening to your heartbeat pound behind your temples. Your muscles unclench slightly when no burning, swelling or nausea follows. You nod briefly, signalling safety, silently grateful that today's cooks seem trustworthy, or at least less murderous. But the banquet has barely begun, and each course must be similarly tested. Next, the quail. Fragrant and golden, glistening under the soft candlelight. You slice a modest piece, savouring carefully. Again, the anxious wait. Nothing sinister yet. Slowly your confidence creeps upward, though caution prevents total relief. As the evening progresses, you occasionally catch snippets of whispered conversations. Courtly intrigue buzzes softly around you, nobles carefully navigating complex politics beneath their polished masks of loyalty. Every quiet whisper, every sidelong glance potentially hints at hidden schemes, subtle threats. You remind yourself constantly. Conspiracies can involve anyone. Nobles, advisors, priests, even cooks. It's hardly comforting, yet somehow you manage gentle humour amid dread, perhaps a survival mechanism. Secretly, you imagine dramatically clutching your chest after sampling innocent fruit salad, pretending agony just to see noble reactions, perhaps outing a traitor among guests with your staged performance. It's a fantasy, but hey, every small laugh eases the stress, right? By dessert, your nerves fray slightly at edges, but mercifully, no deadly surprises appear tonight. Sweet pastries drizzled in honey, sprinkled liberally with pistachios, melt harmlessly on your tongue. Pharaoh dines contentedly nearby, oblivious or indifferent to your subtle struggles. You envy his carefree bites, his life protected by your willing or unwilling risk. Eventually servants clear dishes, conversations fade, and guests disperse elegantly. Pharaoh, satisfied, acknowledges you briefly, perhaps even appreciatively, or so you convince yourself. Another day survived. Relief settles gently upon you, heavy yet fleeting. Retiring again, exhaustion mingles with uneasy gratitude. You survived another round. You sink onto your bed, muscles finally relaxing despite lingering tension. Tomorrow looms inevitably, with identical perils awaiting. But tonight, you embrace brief solace, perhaps your only guaranteed reward. In the silent darkness, your eyelids droop. Dreams inevitably await, filled likely with feasts turned sinister, dishes hiding poison subtly beneath spices and sauces. Your subconscious rarely grants peace, your waking fears intruding uninvited into restful realms. Yet, even nightmare-laden sleep grants brief reprieve. You drift off slowly, thoughts wandering into absurd territory. Maybe tomorrow you'll pretend that suspicious olives taste like poison, watching nobles panic amusingly. It's dark humour, but hey, whatever eases your burden, right? Good night, brave taster. Enjoy your fleeting peace. Tomorrow's menu awaits with exquisite delights and deadly possibilities. Sleep deeply, because tomorrow you'll certainly need it. The morning sun cuts sharply across your face like a blade, warm and bright, yet far from comforting. It's another day in paradise, or at least the heavily perfumed paranoia-drenched version of paradise that is the Pharaoh's palace. You wake slowly, your body still sore from yesterday's stress, your thoughts already racing toward tonight's meal. There's no escaping the routine. Rise, dress, smile, and prepare to possibly die in front of a crowd. Again. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Your day starts with the same silent ritual. Slipping into fresh linen, inspecting yourself in the mirror for any unexpected signs of poisoning, because ancient Egyptian toxins weren't always punctual. Sometimes they waited, lurking in your bloodstream like a crocodile beneath the Nile's surface. A twitch here, a rash there, each small sensation triggers a cascade of worry. You remember that one time a pomegranate seed got stuck in your throat and you nearly threw yourself down a flight of stairs to die dramatically, rather than just cough in front of the Pharaoh. Today's whisper through the court grapevine is that a foreign emissary has arrived, bringing exotic foods from a kingdom so far south, it's mostly sand and scorpions. This means two things: rare delicacies and an increased chance of death by culinary misadventure. You briefly consider faking a twisted ankle, maybe disappearing into a laundry basket, but you're too well known for that. Instead, you march toward the kitchens like a condemned man toward his gilded gallows. Inside the Great Palace kitchen, the scene is even more chaotic than usual. A flurry of activity surrounds a strange shipment of ingredients wrapped in fragrant leaves and unusual baskets. You approach cautiously, inspecting them alongside the high cook. "Delicacy," he says with a grin. "Foreign. Likely safe. Likely." You hold back a sarcastic comment. It's bad form to antagonize the man who slices your test samples. You make a note of everything, preparation style, who touches which dishes, how long things are left uncovered. It's a delicate dance, and part of your unofficial training. You've developed a sort of sixth sense for culinary danger. Cold food that should be hot. Bruised fruit in a palace that serves only perfection. Even a sauce that smells too much like almonds. Trust us. If something smells like almonds and isn't a dessert, walk away. You join the pre-feast tasting session held privately before the Pharaoh arrives. This is your solo preview. No musicians, no crowd, just you and a carefully arranged tray of very suspicious things. First up, a peculiar dumpling made of imported grain and minced pigeon, wrapped in a spicy paste. You slice it open with deliberate calm, watching for unusual colours, unexpected textures, or movement. You chew slowly, grimacing not from poison but from its astonishing blandness. An anticlimactic start, honestly. Next comes something more exotic. Dried beetle shells soaked in honey, apparently a ritual snack from the emissary's homeland. You eye it, then pop one into your mouth with the grace of someone expecting fireworks. Crunchy, sticky, weirdly floral, not immediately fatal. You count that as a win. Still, that's just the appetizer round. When the grand feast begins, your real ordeal starts. The banquet hall is all glitter and pretense. Golden columns, lotus-shaped braziers flickering with flame, an aroma cloud of roasted meats, spices, and perfume that makes your nostrils dance the line between awe and nausea. The Pharaoh enters, his robes shimmering with fine linen and lapis lazuli beads. He glances your way with a flicker of recognition, perhaps respect, perhaps amusement. He never says much to you, but you're always aware of his presence and his expectations. Don't die on his watch. As platters are presented, the room stills. Everyone knows the drill. You step forward, your hands steady though your pulse flutters like a sparrow trapped in a wine jug. The first dish is placed before you. A massive leg of roasted antelope glazed in foreign spices. You carve a piece, chew, swallow. No pain, no dizziness, just an overwhelming flavour of cumin and impending judgment. The Pharaoh waits the usual count. Then, with a satisfied grunt, he signals for his own portion. The guests breathe again. You step aside, a model of practiced composure. But tonight is special. The emissary presents a final dish, covered dramatically with a bronze cloche. With a flourish, it's revealed. A pyramid-shaped dessert made of layered pastry, nuts, and honey. It's both impressive and unnerving, too perfect, like it knows it's a trap. You lift a piece, bite, and instantly feel nothing. Not good, not bad, just a strange blankness like chewing sweet air. You swallow, aware that everyone is watching. Moments pass. You're fine. You think, maybe. The Pharaoh takes a bite. The room watches. He chews, swallows, pauses, burps. Everyone laughs politely. Even you chuckle nervously. A few minutes later you feel a strange tingle. Just in your fingers. Probably nerves. Or maybe not. You casually excuse yourself, stepping behind a pillar and inhaling deeply. The tingling fades. Probably psychosomatic. You tell yourself that 5 times before walking back in. Later that evening, back in your quarters, you lie in bed replaying every detail. How long each dish sat out, how the emissary gestured toward the dessert, how the cook handled the ingredients. Were you a pawn in a subtle political jab, or was it just stress? Historians still argue whether foreign dignitaries used food as political theatre, attempting to intimidate, threaten, or simply show off. Some suggest such performances were coded messages. Look what I can feed your pharaoh without killing him. Others claim actual attempts happened often, hidden beneath silken diplomacy. But in your line of work, those theories feel like lived experience. You drift off imagining the weird beetle snack crawling back up your throat in a revenge plot. It doesn't. Probably. Still, your dreams tonight are not peaceful. You're in a banquet again, surrounded by courtiers whose faces melt into those of jackals, laughing as you sample dish after dish that turns to ash in your mouth. At the end of the table sits the Pharaoh, his eyes glowing, his mouth unmoving as he watches you fall. You jolt awake, and then you smile faintly, still alive. For now. The next morning begins with a stillness so eerie, it feels like even the palace itself is holding its breath. You wake before sunrise, heart thudding in your chest for no apparent reason, until you remember the foreign feast from the night before and that strange tingling in your fingertips. You're still here, which is good. You haven't grown a third eye or dropped dead in the night, also good. But the memory lingers like the faint taste of those oddly blank pastries, delicious and disturbing all at once. The foreign emissary has left, according to palace rumour, his caravan vanishing into the sands just before dawn. Convenient. You wonder if it's a coincidence or part of something more calculated. After all, what better way to avoid being questioned about a suspicious dessert than disappearing before breakfast? As you dress, you make mental notes. Do not trust smiling diplomats. Never eat anything shaped like a pyramid again. Avoid purple grains. Maybe stick to bread and lentils for the next few days. If only your job allowed that luxury. Down in the kitchens, it's strangely quiet. The usual shouting, chopping and cursing has given way to murmured voices and suspicious glances. The high cook waves you over with a sour look. "No meat today," he says simply. "Pharaoh's fasting." You blink. Fasting. The man who devours 6-course meals in silk robes just decided not to eat? That never happens. Something's off. You glance at the kitchen staff, who are busy prepping soups and fruits, their movements tense and deliberate. "What's going on?" you ask. The high cook lowers his voice. "Pharaoh didn't sleep well. Said he had a dream about being poisoned. Blamed the stars, the food, the gods, the air. Now he's nervous. Wants only soft foods and nothing spiced, just in case." Ah, palace logic. Dream equals poison equals soup. Makes perfect sense if you live your life in constant fear of assassination. Which, to be fair, the Pharaoh absolutely does. Still, this isn't just an odd dream. Something about last night rattled him. Whether it was the foreign sweets or the sight of your uncertain face as you stepped aside to breathe, something spooked him. And when the Pharaoh gets spooked, the entire palace pivots in sync like birds in flight. Everyone knows what happens when the ruler feels threatened. People vanish, reputations shatter. Poison isn't the only way to die in a palace. Today's task should be easier at least. No roasted game birds or spice sauces to decipher. Just soft-boiled lentils, dates, barley porridge, and maybe a bland melon or two. The ingredients are simple, but that doesn't mean you're off the hook. Some poisons are tasteless and invisible, especially those mixed with liquids or syrups. You've heard whispers of deadly tinctures extracted from lilies, lotus petals, even frog skin. The ancient Egyptians loved their symbolism, but they were just as fond of their poisoners. One scroll you once peeked at, hidden deep in the temple archives, described how deadly substances could be smeared on figs, absorbed through skin, or even infused into wine. You imagine it now, a servant drizzling honey over fruit, a single drop of doom in the middle, no smell, no taste, just a sudden weakness, a silent collapse. The porridge in front of you steams gently, innocent and beige. You sip it, savouring every bland, worry-free mouthful. It's almost boring, and that's honestly a relief. No alarming textures, no suspicious bitterness, just mush. The melon is soft and ripe. You slice off a chunk and chew carefully. Sweet, cool, safe. Probably. One of the kitchen girls, barely older than 14, watches you from the corner of the room, eyes wide. You wonder if she's sizing you up, trying to guess if you'll keel over or keep chewing. She jumps when you smile at her and scurries away like a mouse. As you step away from the testing tray, you realise this is what your life has become. A performance. Every taste, every nod, every grimace. It's not just about detecting poison. It's about reassurance. You're the canary in the gilded mine. If you look calm, everyone else eats. If you look anxious, well, people start writing wills. Later at the Pharaoh's private chamber, you're summoned for a rare pre-meal audience. This is never good. He's seated on a cushioned chair, a scroll unrolled across his lap. His eyes flick toward you as you enter, then back to the writing. The room smells of incense. sandalwood and myrrh, strong enough to mask anything less pleasant. "You did not look well last night," he says after a long pause. You bow low. "It was an unfamiliar dish, Majesty. I felt it was wise to observe carefully." He rolls the scroll tighter. "You're not here to observe. You're here to eat." You smile weakly. "Of course, Majesty." He waves a hand, dismissing you. As you exit, you hear him mutter, "I don't trust any food anymore." You can't blame him. The higher the throne, the closer the blade. That night's dinner is a strange affair. The dishes are mild, bordering on dull, soups, flatbreads, steamed vegetables. No meats, no sauces, no joy. But everyone eats in exaggerated silence, their spoons scraping the bowls like monks in a temple. Even the musicians play slower than usual, like they're worried an off-note might get them executed. You taste each item, as always. Each bite takes longer. People watch more closely. Your gestures become deliberate, slow, careful. You're performing calm even as your heart drums like a war march. The room doesn't exhale until Pharaoh takes his third spoonful. It's amazing how quickly fear changes everything. Yesterday's feast was a carnival of colour and spice. Today it's like someone painted over the palace in beige. During a lull in the meal, you spot an old acquaintance. Well, as close to an acquaintance as someone in your position can have. Nenny, the head perfumer's apprentice, gives you a small nod from across the room. She's one of the few people who knows what your job does to a person. You remember sharing a quiet moment with her during last year's river festival, hiding behind a pillar while she sneaked you a honeyed fig and told you which noble had collapsed from too much wine and too little discretion. You wonder if she brought the incense into the Pharaoh's room this morning, trying to mask his unease with smoke and scent. You'll have to ask her sometime, if you live that long. By the end of the meal, the Pharaoh looks less tense. Not happy, but not ready to throw his goblet through a window either. That's probably the best anyone can hope for these days. As guests begin to filter out, you feel the weight of 100 glances pressing on you. You nod, bow, and retreat quietly, back through the silent corridors, past the still-burning braziers, and into the comforting hum of the lower halls. Your room welcomes you with its simplicity: a bed, a small chest, a pitcher of water, and a carved wooden cat you once found near the market. The cat has no name, but you talk to it anyway. Tonight, you sit beside it and sigh. "Still breathing," you whisper. The cat says nothing, which you take as agreement. You think about that dream the Pharaoh had, about the desert winds carrying death, about the stars turning red, about the emissary's sudden departure. Historians still argue whether pharaohs truly believed in prophetic dreams, or just used them as convenient political excuses. Some say they acted on omens without hesitation, executing advisors, cancelling campaigns, changing laws overnight. Others believe dreams were staged, crafted by court magicians to manipulate decisions. Either way, when a dream causes the pharaoh to fast, it's not just indigestion, it's a ripple through the whole kingdom. You lie back and stare at the ceiling. The scent of dinner still clings faintly to your skin. Porridge, melon, a hint of fear. It's the safest meal you've had in weeks, and somehow it was still terrifying. Sleep comes slowly tonight, not because of danger, but because of the realization that even a safe day isn't safe. Even when the food is fine, the fear remains. It's become part of you, woven into your nerves, your stomach, your breath. You wonder what it would feel like to eat without fear. To chew because you're hungry, not because it's your duty. To swallow without counting seconds, without waiting for the telltale burn or dizziness. Maybe one day when your service ends, when your replacement arrives, when your name is forgotten but your body is still intact, you'll find out. Until then, you sleep. Lightly, warily, like someone who knows tomorrow's breakfast might kill them. There's something unnerving about waking up and realizing you don't feel like you're about to die. It's almost worse than the usual knot of dread in your stomach, like your body's bracing for danger that hasn't arrived yet. You stretch in the half-light, listening to the quiet rustle of the palace beyond your chamber walls. No shouting, no frantic footsteps, no coughing fits from a poisoned noble echoing down the corridor. Just silence. Too much silence, and you swing your legs over the side of your bed and reach for the water jug on the floor. The clay is cool against your fingers, the water stale, but drinkable. You sip slowly and glance at the tiny wooden cat perched on the shelf above your wash basin. Still here, you murmur. Today your orders are different. Instead of heading to the kitchen as usual, you've been summoned to the northern terrace, an open-aired structure overlooking the inner gardens where Pharaoh occasionally receives intimate company and conducts unofficial affairs, which means either a surprise breakfast, a hidden meeting, or, more likely, a test. You dress carefully, not too formal, not too casual. You wear the white linen sash, which signals obedience and purity, and hope it sends the right message. I am humble, loyal, and most importantly, not plotting your death. As you approach the terrace, the sun is just clearing the temple rooftops. Its golden rays scatter over the polished floor tiles, warming the alabaster underfoot. Pharaoh sits beneath a fabric canopy, shaded by palm leaf fans swaying in the morning breeze. His face is unreadable as always, though his fingers twitch against the armrest of his chair. 3 guards stand silently behind him, looking bored in that terrifying I could kill you and still be home for dinner way. On a low table in front of Pharaoh rests a modest tray. Dates, flatbread, a small bowl of what looks like cucumber and mint salad, and a cup of golden-coloured drink. Not exactly a royal buffet, but that's what makes it more suspicious. He gestures without a word. You step forward, knees slightly bent, hands outstretched like a priest offering a sacrifice. No words are exchanged. You know what to do. You tear a piece of flatbread first. It's slightly warm, likely made just moments ago. You chew, chew, chew. Nothing. Not even a rogue raisin. Just flour and air. Next, the salad. Light, crisp, refreshingly bitter. You swallow and wait. The tension makes you hyper-aware of your body, your tongue, your throat, your heartbeat. Still nothing. Lastly, the drink. It smells like spiced honey, but there's an odd bitterness behind the sweetness, like someone tried too hard to mask something. You lift the cup, hold it to the light, and take a careful sip. Sweet, warm, bitter. You hesitate. The Pharaoh narrows his eyes. You swallow, and you stand perfectly still. The moments stretch. Time becomes taffy. Then, nothing. You breathe again, slower this time, nod. You're still alive, probably. He speaks finally. That was mine. You blink. Majesty? I was to drink that this morning without a taster. You try not to react, but your stomach drops slightly. He leans forward, studying you with unsettling calm. They told me it was too risky to go without you. They were right, you say before thinking. Then immediately regret saying anything at all. He smiles faintly. I wanted to feel normal. One meal without paranoia, but it seems even that is too much. You don't know how to answer. He doesn't expect one. I dream more often now, he continues. Dreams of choking, of pain in the chest, of watching the room go dark while everyone keeps eating. You nod slowly. Dreams can be warnings, Majesty. Or illusions, he replies. Or both. He gestures toward the tray. You passed. You're not sure what kind of test it was, but passing is better than the alternative. That afternoon, the kitchens return to a strange semblance of normal. You review the menu. Roasted goose, chickpea cakes, stewed leeks, barley beer, honeyed dates. A welcome change after yesterday's beige-on-beige diet. You notice new guards at the kitchen doors. Bigger ones. The type with arms like carved granite and expressions like boiled fish. Either Pharaoh's growing paranoid again, or someone in his circle actually tried something. You pull aside the high cook. What's going on? He shrugs but doesn't meet your eyes. There was an incident. Tell me. He sighs. One of the storage jars was swapped, the one used for the morning drink. Another one had something in it. You stare. Something? A powder. Bitter. Would have blended well. The gods only know what it was. We burned it. You clench your jaw. So that was a test. Everything's a test, he says grimly, then hurries off to scold a baker for burning bread. You lean against a table, suddenly feeling heavy. That drink had poison in it. You're sure of it now, and Pharaoh knew. Maybe not for certain, but enough to call you in and have you try it first. You were a canary again, and the mine was very real. And now you're still alive, which could mean 2 things. 1, it was a bluff, a warning to his enemies. 2, the poison wasn't strong enough. You spend the rest of the afternoon walking through the food prep with a renewed intensity. You check every pot, every spice bowl. You open jars, sniff herbs, weigh meats. You question the apprentices. Where did they get the honey? Who caught the goose? Who boiled the beer? Most of the time they answer honestly. The rest of the time, well, it's hard to say. They're scared, just like you. Dinner is extravagant. Pharaoh sits elevated on a carved throne adorned with lapis and gold. Musicians play a haunting melody, and dancers weave slowly between columns like ghosts. Courtiers drink too much wine. Laughter echoes a little too loud. You're already sweating by the time the first course arrives. You test every dish methodically. The stewed leeks are too hot. The goose is a little dry. The barley beer tastes smoky. None of it screams poison, but everything feels off. It's not the food, it's you. You keep remembering that cup, the bitterness, the faint sting on your tongue. You feel it still, even now, hours later. Maybe it's just memory, maybe not. You watch Pharaoh drink from his own goblet, eyes locked with yours for a split second. Then he smiles. You can't tell if it's gratitude or something darker. Later, when the feast ends and the guests disappear like shadows, you return to your chamber. You collapse onto the bed fully clothed. You don't even wash the palace scent off your skin. Sweat, spices, incense, and something that might just be fear. You think about the poison in the drink, the silence in the kitchen, the bigger guards, the bitter sip, the pharaoh's dream. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptian rulers exaggerated threats for control, or whether those threats were constant, real, and absolutely terrifying. Some say pharaohs ruled with divine power and mortal terror, balancing worship with assassination attempts. Others argue that food tasters were more symbolic than functional, public acts of loyalty to reassure guests. But you know the truth. You're not a symbol, you're not theatre, you're a very real, very scared person. And tonight, you came closer than ever to dying for someone else's paranoia. You lie there staring at the ceiling, hand pressed against your chest, feeling your heart beat like a whisper in the dark. You imagine the poison spreading, not in your body but in the palace itself, in whispers, in secrets, in bowls of salad and goblets of gold. Maybe next time it won't be a test, maybe next time they'll mean it, and you'll chew anyway, because that's the job. You wake in the middle of the night with a jolt, heart pounding, body drenched in sweat. It takes a few seconds to realise you're not choking, not dying, not convulsing on the floor of Pharaoh's terrace. You're just in your bed, sheets tangled, chest heaving, breath catching like a fish netted in panic. Another dream. This one was vivid. You were at the centre of a banquet, surrounded by masked guests whispering in languages you couldn't understand. A servant placed a golden bowl in front of you, empty. Then everyone stared, silent, waiting. You looked down and the bowl filled on its own, brimming with something dark and thick. Blood, wine, poison. You dipped your fingers in and your hand began to smoke. You sit upright now, blinking at the moonlit room. The cat figurine on your shelf watches in stoic silence. You think about tossing it out the window, superstition creeping into your logical brain like mist under a door, but it's not the cat's fault. You're unravelling thread by thread, slowly, softly, like silk caught on a thorn. When morning comes, your limbs feel heavy, like your bones themselves don't want to get out of bed. But you do, because that's the rule. Survive, then show up. There's a surprise announcement as you enter the kitchens, a midday festival, a minor holiday to honour Bastet, goddess of protection, fertility, music, and pleasure. There will be dancing, drinking, and, oh joy, an outdoor feast for Pharaoh and his chosen inner circle. That means you. Everyone else seems thrilled. You're already picturing sun-drenched meats rotting slowly in the heat, flies buzzing over plates of syrupy figs, wine fermented past its prime. Festivals are a taster's nightmare. The high cook, clearly enjoying your discomfort, slaps you on the back. Don't worry, he says. It's just a few dozen dishes, maybe 100 ingredients, and a field full of bees, dogs, and clumsy servants. What could possibly go wrong? You force a smile and resist the urge to strangle him with a linen towel. As preparations begin, the palace courtyard transforms. Silk canopies rise, cushioned seating lines the garden's edge. Musicians tune lyres, flutes, and drums. Priests bless the grounds with incense, waving fans of ostrich feathers. And in the middle of it all, tables sag beneath golden platters of food that would make even the gods drool. Skewers of roasted duck with dates, Honey-glazed flatbreads, spiced fish wrapped in lotus leaves, almond-stuffed figs, cucumber salads dripping with vinegar and dill. You don't have time to admire the beauty. You're too busy tracking each dish like a falcon eyeing a mouse. Who touched it? Where was it stored? Was it covered? How long was it exposed to open air? There's a particularly worrisome dish. A chilled paste of pomegranate and mint served in stone bowls. Something about the way the surface shines bothers you. You drag the youngest kitchen apprentice aside. Where did this come from? The north storage, she whispers. And who made it? I don't know. It was already there this morning. You stare at her. She stares back, wide-eyed, as though she's just realised the implications of her own words. You push past her and storm into the storage room. Inside, the air is cool, thick with the scent of fruit and grain. You scan the shelves. There, 6 bowls with the same signature pomegranate paste. Chilled. Prepared in advance. But by whom? You summon the high cook. He's sweating more than usual, wiping his brow with a stained cloth. These bowls, you say? Who made them? He squints. I don't remember. They were there when I did inventory. I assumed... You assumed, you hiss. You know what happened with the drink, he grimaces. It's festival chaos. People everywhere. Maybe one of the newer assistants. Then you taste it. He pales. That's answer enough. You bring one of the bowls back to your tiny corner of the kitchen and sit. You have a slate tablet, a cup of vinegar to cleanse your tongue, a cloth napkin, your tasting kit. You've assembled it out of habit, superstition and necessity over the years. You dip a spoon into the paste, swirl it gently and lift it to your mouth. The flavour is divine, sweet and tart and ice-cold, a perfect contrast to the sun-baked air outside. And that's the problem. It's too perfect. You wait. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2. You feel fine. But then, of course, you would. Many poisons are slow. Still, protocol is protocol. You set the bowl aside and mark it with a scratched line. Delayed reaction suspected. It'll be served last, if at all. The feast begins with a trumpet blast. Pharaoh arrives, draped in gold-threaded linen, an elaborate collar gleaming around his neck. He looks pleased, even relaxed, surrounded by his wives, advisors, and favoured courtiers. Children chase each other near the garden fountains, their laughter echoing through the warm air. You're seated to the side, as always, near the servers, within arm's reach of every plate. The music starts, the guests eat, and you chew. Every dish is yours first. Roasted duck, dry but safe. The fish in lotus leaf. Smells fishier than usual but passes. The almond figs, heavenly. You almost forget yourself for a moment, until a pit crunches beneath your teeth and your heart jumps in your throat. False alarm, just a hard nut. You laugh softly to yourself. One of those, I might be losing my mind laughs. A nearby servant gives you a worried glance. You wave them off. Halfway through the feast, the paste appears again. One of the servers picks up a bowl, moving toward the pharaoh's table. Wait, you say too sharply. The servant freezes. You stand. The crowd quiets a little. You walk over, lift the bowl gently and tilt it. There's an issue with this dish, you say, loud enough for Pharaoh to hear. He raises an eyebrow. I tasted it, you continue, but I'd prefer to wait a few more hours before declaring it safe. There's a long silence, then Pharaoh chuckles. Then we shall wait. A wave of laughter follows, some genuine, most nervous. You nod, return the bowl to the kitchen, and exhale so hard your knees buckle slightly. That night you stay up later than usual, lying on the stone bench outside your quarters, staring at the stars. You hear faint laughter from the far end of the palace. The festival still lingers in small corners, but your body refuses to relax. Historians still argue whether food tasters were allowed to intervene in royal meals, or merely die discreetly when something went wrong. There are records suggesting some were given the authority to halt a service if they noticed something odd. Other accounts imply they were glorified sacrifices, expected to expire quietly so others wouldn't have to. You wonder which kind of taster you are. Today Pharaoh listened to you, tomorrow he might not. Still, you're alive. And the paste? You check it again before bed. It's gone. The bowl is empty, not served, just vanished. You don't ask questions. You sleep with one eye open, and both ears straining for footsteps. The sun rises sluggishly over the eastern courtyard, casting long amber beams across the sandstone floors. You're already up, crouched near the doorway to the kitchens, nibbling a piece of dry bread, your eyes trained on every servant entering or exiting the supply rooms. You didn't sleep much, maybe 2 hours at best, and when you did, your dreams were more exhausting than restful. You keep thinking about the pomegranate paste that vanished. No one has mentioned it. Not the high cook, not the servers, not Pharaoh. It simply disappeared. No explanation, no accounting, just gone. It's like it was never there. But you remember the taste, the strange smoothness, the perfect flavour. Too perfect. You chew slowly, staring down the hall, half expecting a guard to arrive and quietly escort you to some dark cellar. The kind you don't walk back out of. Instead, a young runner skids around the corner, panting. Summoned, he gasps. By name. You nod grimly and wipe your hands. Here we go. You're led not to the usual throne room or terrace, but to the House of Life, the palace's private medical wing. It smells of crushed herbs, incense, sweat, and something underneath it all. Fear, maybe. A room where bodies are kept alive long enough to confess, recover, or die quietly. Inside, Pharaoh sits beside a reclining figure. One of his younger scribes, you think. Face pale, chest heaving. You step forward and bow low. Speak, Pharaoh says without preamble. You glance at the scribe. He's got the look of a man who tried something stupid and lost the gamble. He's been vomiting since dawn, says one of the physicians, fanning the boy's face. Sweating, cramping, symptoms are familiar. Poison, you ask quietly. The doctor frowns. Uncertain, but consistent. Pharaoh turns to you. You tasted everything yesterday. I did, and nothing happened to you. You hesitate, except for the paste. He nods slowly. He ate the paste. There it is. The confirmation. You knew it. You feel a chill crawl up your spine. I didn't authorize its serving, you say carefully. I didn't authorize his appetite, Pharaoh replies. He stole it. You blink. The idea of anyone stealing food from the royal table is both suicidal and absurd, but then again, so is being a food taster. The two of you stare at each other in understanding. He'll live, the physician says softly, but barely. Pharaoh stands. So it was poisoned after all. You nod. Likely, it was too refined, too prepared. Pharaoh doesn't speak for a moment. Then, without turning to face you, he mutters, "Find out who did it." You stiffen. "Majesty, I'm not..." "You're the only one who knew," he turns then, eyes sharp. You stopped it, which means you're not just a taster anymore. You're an investigator. Your mouth goes dry. That's not a promotion you wanted. "But, do you want me to assign a priest?" he asks, voice low. "A spy? A guard who wouldn't know a melon from a murder weapon?" You don't answer. He doesn't wait. "Start with the kitchens. Work your way out, quietly." And just like that, your world shifts again. You return to the kitchen with your mind spinning. You're not a detective. You barely survived last week's fig pudding. But Pharaoh gave you an order, and orders from the throne carry consequences if ignored or executed poorly. So you begin. First, the ingredients. The pomegranate paste was cold, pre-made, stored in a sealed clay bowl. That meant preparation the night before. You summon the youngest apprentices. Their memories are shaky. Most were dealing with trays of lentils, not exotic desserts. But one girl, a scullery cleaner, remembers something. "There was a woman," she says, "not one of us. She came in late, said she had orders." "Describe her." "Tall, veiled, hands like a noble." "That's odd. Nobles don't enter the kitchens. Ever." You ask to see the bowl again, the one you marked and left. But of course it's missing, vanished. As if the poison needed to erase its own evidence. You move next to the guards posted outside the supply room. They shrug. "Too many deliveries," one says. "Festival chaos." Exactly what you were afraid of. You check the supply log next. It's a mess of scratched notes, half-legible names, and random weights. But in the margins, a name appears 3 times. Neferura. She's not a cook, she's not a servant. She's a priestess attached to the temple wing. A minor one known mostly for brewing oils and perfumes. What business did she have in the kitchen? You don't report her immediately. You're not stupid. Naming names too early could backfire, especially if that name belongs to someone with temple connections. Instead, you make a quiet visit to the temple gardens. Neferura is there, seated beneath a fig tree, reading a scroll. She looks serene, devout, harmless. but you've seen enough harmless faces twist into masks of cunning. You sit beside her, uninvited. I hear you were helping with food yesterday, you say. She doesn't look up. I was asked to bring perfumed oils for the feast. Oils don't go in pomegranate paste. She pauses. Number. But sometimes the scent of safety is more important than safety itself. You glance sideways. You know what happened to the scribe? She nods. He's greedy. Took what wasn't his. You shift in your seat. So the paste was meant for someone else. She looks up at last. Her eyes are calm, unblinking. Number, it was a gift. For Pharaoh? For you, she says. The air goes still. You're the gate, she continues. The mouth, the judge of purity. But you're tired, dull, less precise than you used to be. You feel like the world is tilting beneath you. You tried to kill me? I tried to test you. You laugh, but it's bitter. Everyone wants to test me. No one ever asks how many tests I've already passed. Neferura smiles softly. You passed again. You want to stand, you want to shout, but you don't, because she's not entirely wrong. You're tired, you're slipping. The paste fooled you. Only for a while, but still. Why tell me, you ask? Why not disappear like the others? Because Pharaoh will ask, she says, and you'll tell him. And I want you to remember. Not all poisons are meant to kill. Some are meant to remind. You leave her under the fig tree, hands shaking. You report back to Pharaoh in the late evening. He listens silently, one finger tracing the edge of a carved armrest. She admits it, he asks. Yes. And you believe her? I believe she poisoned the paste, yes. Why? She said it was a test of me. He considers this. And did you pass? You hesitate. Barely. He smiles faintly. That's enough. You blink. You're not going to punish her. She's temple, he says. Sacred. Touched by the gods. And she tried to kill your taster. Who survived, he replies. Which makes you stronger, sharper. You stare at him. You see, that's the point, he says. You are getting comfortable, and comfort is death. You nod slowly, not because you agree, but because disagreement here is suicidal. You're dismissed. As you leave, you hear him mutter, "May the gods keep her curious." That night, you lie in bed, unable to sleep. You think of the paste, the priestess, the boy who stole a taste meant for you, the Pharaoh, cool as wine, saying that survival itself was proof of strength. You're beginning to hate food. You dream again, this time of a banquet where every plate is filled with ashes, and everyone claps as you chew them, over and over and over. You wake with the taste still in your mouth. You wake with a bitter taste lingering on your tongue, though you haven't eaten since the night before. You sit up, touch your lips, half expecting them to be stained black, like the ancient stories tell, when someone eats something cursed, and the gods mark them. But there's nothing, just sweat dried across your neck like a collar of salt. You splash water on your face and stare into the polished bronze mirror. You look older than yesterday. Not physically, not really, but in the eyes. Like something behind them has pulled back a layer of innocence and now everything's just a little too clear. South. You passed another test. Another reminder. You're starting to think you're the only person in the palace who actually hates being here. Everyone else seems addicted to it. The gold, the drama, the whispers, the glances over goblets of date wine. The palace thrives on its own tension. It drinks it, feeds on it. You? You're just trying to get to the end of a meal with your stomach intact. Today, there's more buzz than usual. The palace is humming. You hear it the moment you step into the corridor, nobles whispering louder than they should, servants rushing faster than normal, and guards standing like granite statues, too still, too aware. Something's up. And then someone finally tells you there's been an arrest, a real one. Not the usual disappear in the night and no one talks about it kind of thing. No, this was public. The temple quarter erupted at dawn with news. One of the pharaoh's high scribes had been caught accepting bribes. Not coins or favours, ingredients. Rare, foreign, dangerous ingredients. You almost laugh. Of course, food. Always food. Apparently he'd been working with outside traders, accepting small vials of powders, roots, and oils from Nubia and beyond. Many of which are illegal even to own unless you're part of the royal apothecary circle. But instead of hoarding them for himself, he'd funneled them into the kitchens masked in spice shipments and oil jars. You know what that means. He might be the one who supplied the paste. The confirmation chills you. When you're summoned, because of course you're summoned, it's not to the throne room this time, not to the terrace or the medical wing. It's the interrogation chamber. It's not nearly as dramatic as you imagined. No torches, no iron shackles. Just a room cut into limestone, cool and echoing, with a drain in the centre and a small stone chair bolted to the floor. The scribe is seated in it. He doesn't look dangerous. He looks like someone's uncle. Tired, hunched, with a receding hairline and fingers stained with ink. He's bleeding from his nose slightly. His robe is torn at the collar. You stand across from him, unsure why you're even here. Then Pharaoh's voice comes from behind a curtain. Ask him. You blink. Majesty, I... Ask him. You knew the dish. You know the questions to ask. So you step forward, swallow hard. You smuggled ingredients into the kitchens. The man doesn't reply. His eyes are red. Not angry, just raw. Were you involved in the pomegranate paste? Still nothing. You clench your fists. It nearly killed someone. I know, he whispers. Why, you ask. And he finally looks at you. Because no one watches us, he says. You taste the food. But who tastes power? Who checks the laws? Who samples the scrolls they write in the Pharaoh's name? You're not sure if he's mad or brilliant, maybe both. So you poisoned food to make a point, you ask, incredulous. I poisoned food, he says, because it was the only thing that mattered to them, the only thing they watched. Behind the curtain you hear movement, a whispered voice, someone giving orders. The scribe doesn't resist as guards come in and lift him to his feet. He walks away calmly. You never see him again. Back in the kitchens there's a new mood, an edge to the laughter, a strain beneath the usual clatter. Word has spread. One of the scribes was dirty. One of the quiet, educated men, trusted with documents and grain records, was slipping poison into the spice baskets. The cooks keep their voices low now. They triple wash the lentils, they sniff the oils before pouring. They whisper about rotating shifts, not letting anyone work alone. Paranoia has spread like mould in the dark. But not everyone is frightened. Some are invigorated. You notice it in the way two of the junior cooks lean in when they talk, glancing around with smirks. You catch a guard talking to a delivery boy with a little too much familiarity. You hear someone joke about how far the tongue can reach when it's dipped in fear. It's no longer just about the food. The palace is addicted to the idea of danger now. There's a frenzy in the air, and you're right in the centre of it. At dinner that night, Pharaoh seems relaxed. More relaxed than he should be. He eats slowly, sips his wine between bites, smiles when courtiers make jokes. It's unsettling. You go through the motions, tasting first, carefully, cautiously, every bite a gamble. The fish is overcooked, the dates are fine, the bread is undersalted. You pretend not to notice Pharaoh watching you more than usual. After the feast he beckons you closer. You have a gift, he says softly. I have a job. No, he says. You notice. Things others don't. You smelled the paste. You found the scribe. You passed the test. You nod slowly. Yes. Do you like your position, he asks. You don't answer, not because you're unsure, but because honesty here is a trap. He smiles. Would you like a higher position? Your mouth goes dry. Majesty. Food is only one part of safety, he says. You could oversee more, train others, taste ideas. You don't know what that means. You don't want to know what that means. He leans back, amused by your silence. Think about it. You bow and back away, and spend the entire night thinking about nothing else. The next morning a noble collapses during breakfast. Not you, not Pharaoh. A visiting cousin, here for 3 days, drops his goblet and slumps sideways into a heap of linen and gold. Panic erupts. Guards swarm, servants scream. The high cook curses a full sentence. You leap up, heart thudding. You tasted everything. You swear it. The duck, the bread, the wine, the olives. You tasted every single... Wait. The grapes. You hadn't touched the grapes. They were brought directly to the table as a last-minute gift from the Nile farmstead. You rush to the table, grab a grape, bite. Nothing. Another. Nothing. And then a small kernel of bitterness. Barely there. On the skin. A residue. You sniff the stem. It smells faintly like vinegar and almonds. Your heart drops. You stand up and find Pharaoh already watching you. He doesn't look shocked. He looks impressed. "Found it, did you?" he murmurs. You nod. "Someone tried again." He smiles. "And missed." "But they didn't miss you." "Not really. Because you don't eat the gifts unless you're told. You followed the rules. They bypassed the rules. And the cousin? He wasn't a target. He was bait." You step back slowly. Pharaoh lifts a grape, holds it up to the candlelight and tosses it to the floor. "Sweep it away," he says. And just like that, it's done. Later that night you sit outside under the stars again, this time not sleeping, not even trying. You think about how it started. Simple bites of bread, tiny sips of wine. Now it's layers within layers. Poison as a message, death as a test, fear as a game. Historians still argue whether royal courts ever reached this level of paranoia, whether food was weaponized this frequently, or if this is all just sensational rumor exaggerated by later generations, but you know better, because you're there, and tomorrow you'll eat again, because no one else will. Dawn breaks over the palace with a sickly pink haze. It's the kind of sunrise that feels unsure of itself, like the sky started something it didn't really want to finish. You're already awake, of course. Sleep has become more suggestion than necessity these days. A polite fiction your body pretends to entertain while your mind paces behind your eyelids. You sit on the edge of your bed, half-dressed, rubbing your temples. The taste of last night's panic still coats your tongue. Sour grapes and bitter almonds, overlain with the metallic tang of adrenaline. You keep going over it moment by moment. The noble cousin slumped over in his chair, the guests shrieking, the guards scrambling to look useful. And Pharaoh, smiling, not surprised, not even mildly annoyed, just observing. Like it was part of the entertainment. You've started to wonder if you are part of the entertainment now too. A living novelty, a man who survives. A man they keep testing just to see when he finally cracks. You wash quickly, splash water on your face and mutter a half prayer to a half-interested god. You stopped believing in divine protection around the time you realised poisons could be rubbed into cups or plates, not just the food itself. If the gods cared, they were clearly too busy helping the wealthy with their perfume choices. The palace is unusually quiet when you step outside. You expect to find the kitchens buzzing with speculation about the poisoned grapes, but instead the staff is hushed, focused, almost reverent. Something's shifted. You spot the high cook hunched over a massive copper bowl of lentils, muttering to himself while shaking a bag of cumin. He doesn't look up when you greet him. "New rules," he says. "No outside gifts, no late deliveries, all fruit sliced before serving, cores discarded." "That'll ruin the aesthetic," you say mildly. "Ruined beats dead," he growls. You help yourself to a flatbread and chew in silence. The whole place feels like it's bracing for a storm, and you're not sure if it's already started or just about to hit. The message arrives as you finish your bread. Another summons, not from Pharaoh this time, but from his mother. You freeze mid-chew. No one ignores Pharaoh's mother. She's not technically royalty anymore, but she's revered. Untouchable. A woman of legendary temper and suspicious longevity. People joke that poison doesn't dare touch her for fear of retaliation. You clean yourself up and go. Her private quarters are nothing like the rest of the palace. No gold, no marble, just aged cedar, linen drapes, and incense that smells like dried roses and long memory. She sits cross-legged on a cushioned platform, petting a hairless cat that looks almost as old as she does. "You're the tongue," she says as you enter. "I suppose I am," you say. "Do you know why you're still alive?" You hesitate. "Luck?" She chuckles. "Luck is for farmers. You're still alive because you serve a purpose." You nod slowly. "But purpose fades," she continues, scratching the cat's head. "One day you won't be needed, then you'll be dangerous." You feel a chill. "You've seen too much," she says. "You've tasted too much. You know where the fear lives now, not just in the kitchens, in the court, in the bloodlines." She sets the cat down and leans forward. "My son," she says, "is playing a game. He's letting you walk between traps not because he cares if you fall, but because he wants to see who else does." She lets that sit for a moment. "You are bait," she finishes. "I suspected," you murmur, "and yet you stay." You meet her eyes. "I do?" "Then make yourself useful," she says. "Keep tasting, keep surviving. But remember, the moment you stop being entertaining, I become suspicious." She nods, satisfied. Go. You leave feeling older. That afternoon there's another banquet. Not a major one. A small gathering, they call it, though it still includes a dozen nobles, a foreign ambassador, and Pharaoh himself. You do your usual, taste everything, watch everyone. But today you see things differently. You notice the ambassador's twitch when the pheasant arrives. You catch the slight shake in the wine steward's hand. You hear the muffled exchange between two scribes about the last shipment from Memphis. And you realise that Pharaoh isn't the only one playing games. Everyone here is scared, not just of death, but of irrelevance, obscurity, obedience. They want power. And they've all realised the same thing. If they can get to Pharaoh's food, they can get to his throne. You're in the centre of it, a tastemaker of death, the last line of defence, the first to fall. The ambassador lifts a cup. You step forward automatically and take a sip. Nothing unusual. He raises an eyebrow. You nod. But you're lying, just a little, because the wine was fine. But the cup? The rim had a faint metallic tang and you say nothing. Not yet. You want to see who drinks and who watches. It's a test now. Your test. Later that evening, the ambassador excuses himself early. You wait. An hour passes. 2. Then you hear it. He collapsed outside the bathhouse, not dead, but violently ill. You don't smile, not exactly, but you feel something settle in your chest. For once the poison missed you, and hit the one it was meant for. Back in your quarters, you stare at the ceiling again. It's your new pastime. That, and trying to remember what normal food tastes like. You think about the ambassador, the way he held the cup, the way his fingers lingered on the rim. Was he part of the plan, or was he the target? Historians still argue whether foreign dignitaries were ever foolish enough to try poisoning a pharaoh on Egyptian soil. Some claim it was diplomatic suicide. Others believe it happened more than once, disguised as accidents, illness, or divine punishment. You suspect both are true, because nothing is simple in this palace, and the truth always tastes a little bitter. Tomorrow there'll be another meal, another test, another round of false smiles and secret glances, and you'll eat again, because that's what you do. You eat, you survive, and you wait for the next bite to betray you. You wake before sunrise again, like always, body trained by habit, by fear, by years of wondering if the next bite might be your last. You swing your legs over the edge of your bed and pause. For a moment you just sit there staring down at your bare feet on the cool stone floor, as if expecting the ground itself to reject you. You're not sure how many days you've survived now. You lost count somewhere between the poisoned goose liver and the incident with the cinnamon wine. But each morning you wake, it's with a dull realization that you've become the only constant in a palace defined by chaos. The people around you keep changing. Advisors come and go. Servants are replaced. Guards rotate. Even Pharaoh's mood changes with the winds. Warm and generous one day, cold and calculating the next. But you remain. Because somehow you haven't died yet. Today you head straight for the kitchens. There's no summons this morning. Yet. But you've learned the value of being early, of seeing the food before it's finished, of watching who lingers too long near the spice jars or who steps back a little too quickly after seasoning the broth. The kitchen smells of coriander, cumin and roasted barley. Familiar smells, almost comforting, until you remember they can hide just about anything, even death. You move through the rooms like a ghost, invisible but feared. The staff part for you. They're polite but guarded. You see it in their eyes, the knowledge that if something goes wrong, you'll be the first to fall, but they'll be the second. No one wants to stand too close to a potential corpse. Today's dishes are simpler by royal standards. Lentil stew, roasted fish, sweet dates, barley cakes, and a fig wine reduction. You taste everything, as always. You chew slowly, eyes half closed, listening to your body like a seer reading omens in the embers. Nothing kills you, which is a relief, and strangely a disappointment, because there's something worse than dying from poison. It's waiting for it. You think of Neferura, the priestess who tried to remind you of your purpose, of the scribe who funneled rare poisons into the palace, of the ambassador who fell ill last night, still breathing but now very far from welcome. And you realise that it's not just the food that's trying to kill Pharaoh, it's the very air in the palace, the smiles, the gossip, the scrolls passed hand to hand. The poison isn't always on the plate, sometimes it's in the words. Pharaoh has called a closed council today, A tight circle of advisors, generals and temple officials. You're not officially part of it, but you're brought in anyway, with no explanation, and stationed in the corner like a potted plant that bites. The council meets in a domed chamber with painted ceilings and columns carved with falcons and lotus petals. It's quiet except for the occasional cough or the scratch of stylus on papyrus. Pharaoh sits in the centre on a low platform, barefoot, wearing only a simple white robe, no gold, no jewels, just skin and silk. When he's like this, you remember why people once called pharaohs gods. He looks human, but larger than life, and always dangerous. The conversation flows around land taxes, temple complaints, troop positions. You barely pay attention. Your focus is on the trays of refreshments being served. Small bowls of olives, melon slices, cups of wine. No one asked you to taste them, but you do anyway. Just before a priest reaches for the olives, you pluck one from the bowl, pop it in your mouth, and chew. It's overly brined, salty enough to sting, but otherwise fine. The priest hesitates, then takes one. He doesn't thank you, they never do. Halfway through the meeting, a general coughs 3 times in rapid succession. You watch the room freeze for a heartbeat, then pretend nothing happened. The man sips water, swallows, nods. He's fine, but everyone noticed. That's all it takes now. A cough, a pause, a second too long chewing. The palace is a hive of fear dressed up in linen and ceremony. Later, after the council disperses, Pharaoh beckons you. You watch like a hawk, he says. It's my job. It's more than your job, he replies. It's your survival. You nod. You didn't flinch when the general coughed, he adds. I've learned not to flinch. He studies you for a moment. Then, surprisingly, good. You don't ask what that means. You don't need to. That evening, after dinner, you retreat to your quarters. You light a single lamp, the flame small and steady, and stare at it for a long time. You think about how far you've come. You think about how close you've come. You remember the slow-acting powders, the bitter almonds, the cinnamon wine, the priestess, the ambassador, the cup with the metallic rim, the noble who died chewing on what should have been a perfectly innocent fig. And then, finally, you think about your own hands, how they no longer tremble when you lift a spoon, how your heart no longer races when you take the first bite, how your instincts now whisper things before your brain even catches up. You're not just tasting for poison anymore, you're reading it, the way a musician hears a wrong note before the audience does. You wonder if this is what it means to become something else, not just a food taster, but something sharper, more dangerous. Maybe you've become the poison in the room, the thing everyone watches, the thing no one touches. You lie back in bed, hands folded over your stomach. You think about how Pharaoh said you had a gift, and how gifts always come with a cost. You wonder what yours will be. The next morning you're woken not by the usual knock or kitchen summons, but by a whisper at your door. A page, trembling, eyes wide. There's been another death. You're on your feet instantly. Who? An archivist. Fell ill in the scriptorium. Was found slumped over a scroll. Died within the hour. You dress quickly, follow the boy. The scriptorium is a quiet, sacred place. Rows of papyrus scrolls, ink pots, reed pens, and silence thick enough to choke on. The smell of dust and papyrus is heavy in the air. The body's already gone, but the scene is intact. A tipped-over wine goblet, a half-eaten fig on a clay plate, ink splattered across a half-finished record. You kneel and sniff the fig. Normal. You sip the wine. Bitter. Not grape bitter. Additive. Bitter. Subtle. Hidden under spices. You nod to the steward. It was the wine. He pales. You stand, brush off your hands. Who brought it? No idea. It came with the midday tray, standard service. Someone slipped something in. Again? Yes, you say. Again. Later you bring the goblet to Pharaoh personally. He holds it in his palm, tilting it toward the light. What do you think this is? He asks. Arsenic, you say, or something like it. Why the archivist? I don't think it was meant for him, you say. I think it was meant for someone else who didn't show. Who? You shrug. Could have been anyone. He smiles faintly. Or it could have been you. You don't respond. I think they're getting impatient, he says. So am I, you reply. That gets a genuine laugh. Then do what you do, he says. Survive. One more day. You bow, turn, and walk away. And somehow, in that moment, you feel taller than you've ever been. Not invincible, not safe, but aware, sharp, alive. And in this palace, that's the rarest flavour of all. The first thing you notice the next morning is the silence. Not the calm, meditative silence of early palace mornings, when the air smells like dew on carved stone and lotus blooms. This silence feels heavy, cautious, like a held breath that no one dares to release. You step into the corridor and sense it immediately. No scurrying servants, no chatter, no metallic clatter from the kitchens. Even the birds in the courtyard seem reluctant to sing. You catch the eyes of a linen-clad page as he passes. He looks down and moves quickly on, lips pressed tight. Something's happened. Again. But this time, no one comes to summon you. So you follow the tension. The hallways twist in familiar routes, sun slanting through the slatted windows, catching in the dust motes that hang in the air like tiny spies. You find the kitchen empty, save for one senior server and 2 guards posted at the doorway, arms crossed. That alone is enough to make your stomach shift. The high cook is absent. You step over to a nearby prep table and glance around. No baskets of bread, no bubbling stews, no slabs of fish laid out to be seasoned. Just nothing. A full stop. The server catches your glance and tilts his chin toward the outer corridor. You nod and head that way, pace brisk. You find the high cook in the courtyard, seated on a low bench near the herb garden, his face pale and drawn. His hands are wet. Not with sweat, he's just washed them. You know this because the wash basin beside him is stained a faint rust red. "Cook?" you ask, approaching slowly. He doesn't look at you. "They got Tehoot." You blink. "Tehoot. My apprentice. Worked spice prep. You know the one. Always humming." "You do?" A young man with quick hands and an unfortunate singing voice. "What happened?" He swallows hard. Collapsed just after setting out the trays. Mouth foamed. Eyes rolled. Gone in minutes. You don't speak. You just lower yourself onto the bench beside him. "Was it something he ate?" you ask eventually. The high cook shakes his head. Number something he touched. Your gut tightens. "Contact poison?" He nods. "Somebody dosed the cinnamon jar." You glance toward the garden wall. The scent of basil and sweet myrrh wafts on the air. Do they know it was meant for him? Number, but that's not the point, is it? Number, it's not. Because if someone laced the cinnamon, and Tehoot just happened to be the one who handled it first, then that means someone planned for it to reach someone else. Someone more important. You. You realise it with a sudden, bitter clarity. The cinnamon goes into the barley cakes. You eat those first, every time. The only reason you didn't yesterday was because the cakes were late arriving to the dining hall, stuck behind a delay with the delivery of the duck. You'd tasted the fig compote first, then the bread, then the soup, and by the time the cakes arrived, Pharaoh had waved them away, bored. A fluke, that's all it was. A moment of distraction saved your life. You stand up slowly. "Show me the jar." The high cook looks at you like you've lost your mind. It's already gone. Guards took it. Temple priest took the body. They're calling for purifications. Blame the gods, blame the stars. But not the killer. He doesn't reply. You nod and walk away, your brain already spinning. This is different now. Not just intrigue, not just warnings and lessons. Someone is making a real attempt, and they're learning, evolving. You're being hunted. You find Pharaoh pacing alone on the rooftop terrace just before noon, his sandals silent on the polished white stone. The Nile glimmers in the distance, boats drifting lazily along its curve like crumbs floating in a bowl. He turns when you approach. "They failed again," he says by way of greeting. "Yes," you reply, barely. "Poor Tehoot." You pause. You don't sound surprised. "I'm not." He walks to the edge, peers down into the inner gardens. A man who knows what others fear becomes a target. You know that. "I thought you were the target," he smirks. "We're both targets now." You step closer. "Then maybe it's time to stop waiting for them to act." He raises an eyebrow. "Go on." "We know the poisons. We know the patterns. It's time we flipped the table." "You mean, set a trap?" You nod. "A dish? Something irresistible, served only to a select few. You'll eat nothing, I'll eat nothing, but they won't know that." Pharaoh considers this. "You'd make a fine assassin." "I'm just a food taster who's tired of being food." He laughs. "Very well. Design it." You spend the next day preparing a feast. But this one's different. This one's a performance. Each dish is symbolic, layered with meaning. Figs, fertility; fish, rebirth; wine, divine blood; cinnamon, life and death; Honey, immortality. Every guest is handpicked. Advisors, priests, scribes, those who've lingered too long near the kitchens, those whose smiles are too wide. The rumour is that this feast is to celebrate a new grain shipment from the eastern provinces. An excuse, but one that brings everyone to the table, including, hopefully, your would-be poisoner. You and Pharaoh eat nothing. Instead, you perform the ritual tastings in full view, but every bite comes from your own private tray, pre-prepared, pre-tested, and guarded. Everyone else digs in. You watch them. Forks rise. Chewing begins. Goblets tip. Conversations falter. You see it. The glances. The sweat. The weight. But nothing happens. Not at first. Then, 20 minutes in, a noblewoman begins coughing. Not much. Just a tickle. Then another joins her. A scribe. Then a third. A guard. And suddenly panic erupts. Not because anyone's dying, but because everyone thinks they might be. People jump up, knocking over cups. Bread spills to the floor. A bowl of honeyed almonds crashes and shatters. Guards draw swords. And Pharaoh? He stands. Calm. Smiling. You all seem unwell, he says. Silence falls. I wonder why. Eyes turn to you. You step forward. We did nothing. We served nothing you haven't had before. Unless, of course, someone else brought something extra. And then you say it. Check the cinnamon again. A murmur ripples through the room. 2 guards grab the steward responsible for spice handling. He doesn't fight. He laughs. That's the first time you're truly afraid. He's not panicked. He's pleased, like he wanted to be caught. As they drag him out, he mutters something you strain to hear. Not the last. And you know he's telling the truth. That night, Pharaoh sits with you by a brazier in his private quarters, drinking mint tea and staring into the fire. You flushed out one snake, he says. There's a nest. Yes, he sips. Still hungry? You glance down at the untouched plate beside you. Not particularly, he smiles. Good. Hunger makes you reckless. You study the firelight flickering across his face. For once he looks his age. Not ancient, but mortal. Vulnerable. You ever get tired of being hunted, you ask? He exhales. Number, I get tired of the ones who fail. You laugh. Not because it's funny, but because it's true. And tomorrow you'll taste again. Because someone somewhere is still trying to kill you. And you're still not done chewing. You don't dream anymore. Not really. Not in the soft, wandering way dreams used to arrive when your mind was calm. When sleep was something you sank into. These days, your dreams are tasks. Rehearsals. You wake up with your mouth dry and your hands curled as if still holding a spoon. Your body thinks it's still working, still testing, still tasting. Even in your sleep, you're on duty. You sit upright in the dark, only the pale blue hue of pre-dawn slipping across the walls. You're alone. You've always been alone. And in the belly of a palace that thrives on proximity, on gossip, on ceremony, on whispers, it's strange to realise how much space there is when no one wants to stand too close to the food taster. You wash your face. You dress in fresh linen, you open the door to silence. The corridors are emptier than usual. Fewer sandals scuffing the floor, fewer papyrus runners moving scrolls back and forth. Even the air smells hesitant. The feast last night may not have claimed lives, but it unearthed something far more dangerous. Suspicion. It's not just about food anymore. That was merely the vessel. The real poison is doubt, and now it's everywhere. You arrive at the kitchens and find the high cook sitting at the edge of a prep table, slicing dried dates with a dull knife, like he's stalling for time. No orders yet, he says without looking up. No meals? No messages, no menus, not even a morning tray. Pharaoh hasn't eaten. That's rare. Not unheard of, but strange. He never skips 2 meals in a row. Even during his fasts he sips something, breaks bread, touches a fig. Even gods have rituals. You sit across from the cook and pick up a knife of your own, trimming away the hard stems from the preserved apricots. You both work in silence for a while. You think he's testing us again? You ask finally. No, the cook mutters. I think he's the one being tested now. You pause. By who? The cook doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. When the summons does come, it's not from Pharaoh. It's from his sister. A princess who rarely speaks, rarely appears, rarely smiles. She's known for her collection of lapis jewellery and for her voice, which is said to be soft enough to calm even a wounded lion. If she's calling you, it means something's gone very, very wrong, or is about to. You're led to her private chambers, where the air smells of frankincense and crushed rose petals. The room is quiet. Only 2 attendants linger at the walls, heads bowed. She sits beside a tray of untouched food, dates, goat cheese, flatbread, and a small cup of barley drink. "I didn't summon you as a tester," she says, gesturing to the tray. "I haven't touched any of it." You nod slowly. "Then what can I do for you, Highness?" She lifts her gaze. "Tell me how close my brother is to dying." You hesitate. "I don't know. Don't lie." You exhale. "I don't think he's been poisoned. Not yet. But he's surrounded by people who would gladly do it, if they thought it would gain them an inch of power." She folds her hands in her lap. "And you?" "I'm not interested in inches. I just want to survive the next bite." She allows herself a faint smile. "You're the only honest man in this palace," she says. "I'm also the most frequently targeted," you reply. "Honesty has a cost." She nods. "Everything does." You glance at the untouched tray. "Why summon me then?" She looks past you, toward the curtained window. "Because if he dies, the poison won't stop. It will spread. Through the court, through the temples, through the streets. The idea of it. The permission." You feel the hairs rise on your arms. "He is many things," she says. "But above all, he is order. Without him, chaos." You understand. She's not afraid of her brother dying. She's afraid of what rises when his throne turns cold, and she's right to be. You leave her chambers with the weight of that warning pressed against your ribs. That afternoon, Pharaoh reappears. Not in the throne room, not at a feast, but in the training yard. He's barefoot, wearing a simple tunic, holding a bow. He looses arrows at a straw dummy with methodical calm. Each strike lands near the heart. His aim is better than you'd expect from a man who spends most of his days being fed, worshipped, and feared. When he sees you, he lowers the bow. "Did you find the source?" he asks. "No," you say. "But they're getting smarter," he nods. "I've stopped eating. I noticed." "Not because of fear," he says. "Because of control." You say nothing. Let him talk. "If I eat nothing, no one can touch me. Not priests, not courtiers, not my mother, not even the gods. Unless you starve," he grins. "A slow poison, that one." Then he drops the bow and steps closer. "You've become important to me," he says quietly. You stiffen. You see more than they think. You listen better than I do. You understand that power lives in the spaces between things, in pause, in taste, in silence. "I'm not a spy." "No," he agrees. "You're worse. You're honest." He claps a hand on your shoulder. It's warm, heavy. "You want to keep me alive?" You nod. "Then help me disappear." You blink. "Majesty, I want to vanish. For a day, maybe 2. Let the court stew. Let the whispers build. Let them think they did it. Watch who grows bold, who stumbles, who celebrates." "You want to fake your death," he smiles. "I want to taste freedom." You don't respond, not right away. But your mind is already racing. You know how to disappear food. Why not a pharaoh? The next morning, Pharaoh dies. Not really, of course. But the announcement is made. His private physician finds him unresponsive in the dawn hour. The court is summoned. Wails echo through the halls. Ritual mourners begin their performance. The palace folds in on itself like a wounded animal. You stay silent. You watch. 3 advisors suddenly stop eating. 2 temple scribes are caught burning scrolls. A minor noble tries to leave the city, unannounced. And in the kitchens, a server accidentally lets slip that the bread supply has been tampered with again. Everything starts to unravel. And in the centre of it all, you remain calm. Because you know the pharaoh is hidden in the catacombs below the palace, sipping clean water, eating dried figs, and listening to reports through a hidden tunnel. You visit him twice. Each time he smiles wider. "This is better than poison," he says. "This is truth." You nod. "They're showing who they are?" He chuckles. "And you? What are you showing?" "That I'm still here." He places a single fig on the stone table. "Then eat." And you do. Not because you're hungry, but because you're proving something. To him, to yourself. That you're still the gate, the line, the mouth that speaks in silence. On the 3rd day, the pharaoh rises. Publicly, dramatically. He appears in the temple square at sunrise, arms outstretched, face serene. The people gasp. They fall to their knees. The court reels. He calls it a vision, a journey beyond the veil, a return from death itself. And it works. Better than anyone expected. Because now he's more than Pharaoh. He's a myth. Untouchable. Divine. And the would-be poisoners, they vanish. One by one. Some by exile, some by accident. Some by cups raised too eagerly. You don't ask questions. You keep tasting. Every bite, every sip, and you never flinch. Because you're not just the taster anymore. You're the guardian of the illusion. The one who knows which flavors hide danger, and which hide ambition, and which hide truth. The next time someone tries to poison the Pharaoh, it's subtle. So subtle, in fact, that the act itself is almost forgettable. No theatrical symptoms, no public collapse, no blood on the lips or spasms across the marble floors, just a slow, creeping fog. It starts with confusion. Not yours, his. The Pharaoh begins repeating himself, forgets what he said a moment ago, pauses mid-sentence and looks down at his hands as if unsure whose they are. At first the court writes it off as divine introspection. A man returned from the dead must need time to adjust, they whisper. He's walking between the veils now. He sees more than we do, but you know better. You've watched him. You've tasted beside him. You know the difference between divine detachment and slow chemical sabotage. The signs are clear now. Delayed reactions, short-term memory loss, slight tremors in the hand when he lifts a goblet. He's not being struck with a blade. He's being drifted. And the poison is working its way in so carefully, so patiently, that even you missed it at first. Until now. You sit beside him at a private meal, simple barley cakes, cucumber salad, watered wine. You don't taste anything suspicious, no bitterness, no off-colour residue. But still, something feels wrong. He reaches for the wine, pauses, blinks slowly. Which day is it? He asks. You look up from your plate. The 4th since your resurrection. He smiles faintly. Feels like the 50th. You lean in closer. Majesty, may I ask who prepared the wine today? He looks at you, brow furrowed. I don't know. He should. You always know who prepares what. That's your rule, your protection, which means someone just broke it, and they did it while making the Pharaoh believe he broke it. That's not an assassination attempt. That's a message. You excuse yourself calmly, rise from the table and walk out straight to the wine cellar. The cellar is cooler than the rest of the palace, a rare sanctuary in the dry Egyptian heat. The stone walls sweat slightly, and the air smells of clay, dates, and fermenting grapes. You walk down the aisle of amphorae with deliberate steps, running your fingers along the sealed lids, pausing at the jars marked with today's delivery. Nothing looks out of place, which means everything is suspect. You summon the wine steward. He's a lean man, older than most, with a face like a stretched reed and teeth stained purple. He's been in the palace since before your time, quiet, reliable, or so you thought. Who touched the wine this morning, you ask. He doesn't answer at first, just adjusts his sleeves. Who opened the amphora, you repeat, this time with less patience. His eyes flick left. It came pre-opened. From the temple. You freeze. Temple wine? For the offering, he says. It was meant for the altar, but a priest redirected a jar, said it was a blessing, said it would make Pharaoh stronger. You feel your stomach knot. Which priest? He hesitates. I didn't see his name. That's a lie. Everyone in the palace learns names. Names are survival. You stare at him. Long enough that he begins to sweat. Then you turn and leave without a word. The temple wing is quiet this time of day. Devotion, after all, is often louder at night. When the gods are said to walk, when incense clouds rise like prayers no one expects to be answered. You move past the empty columns, nod at a scribe, bow slightly to a statue of Bastet, and head for the back chamber where the priests store their sacred goods. There, you find the one you're looking for, Neferura, again. She's grinding herbs in a shallow bowl, the pestle making soft circular strokes. She doesn't look up when you enter. You're persistent, she says. You're dangerous. She finally glances up. So are you. You're still alive. You step forward. Did you poison the wine? No, she says calmly, but I blessed it. That's not funny. It wasn't a joke. You exhale through your nose. Pharaoh's forgetting things, slowly. She nods. He's carrying too much. Cut the riddles, she sets down the pestle. The wine was treated with blue lotus, mild, sacred, calming. Helps a mind loosen, helps visions come. Or thoughts slip away. She shrugs. What's the difference? You lean closer. You know exactly what that wine was doing, she nods. Yes, and I know it wasn't just Blue Lotus. That makes you pause. You're saying someone added more? I'm saying, she says, picking up the pestle again, that even blessings can be corrupted. You stare at her a moment longer, then you leave, because she's not the killer, she's just the smoke. The real fire's somewhere deeper. That night, you sit in your chambers with a goblet of clean water and a plate of barley flatbread. You chew absently, eyes fixed on the ceiling, your mind sifting through every cup, every bite, every whisper from the past week. They've tried to kill him with spice, with grapes, with paste, with contact, with hallucinations. And now they're trying to unmake him from the inside, to erode the Pharaoh, not with a dagger, but with doubt. Because if he forgets enough of who he is, someone else can step in. Someone else can speak with his voice, sign with his seal, rule from his throne. You realize what they're doing. They're not killing the man, they're killing the memory of him. Which means you're not just guarding the food anymore, you're guarding the story. The next day you bring Pharaoh a different cup, you brewed it yourself. Mint, honey, crushed date stem, water from a sealed jug. He raises an eyebrow. What's this? A remedy. For being a god who forgets to eat. He chuckles and drinks it. You watch his face. Nothing changes immediately, but you know it's clean. You trust yourself that much, he asks. No, you say. But I trust who isn't me even less. He leans back, satisfied. You know, I used to think you were a coward. You nod. I am. That's why I'm still alive. He smiles, broader than you've seen in days. Then stay alive, he says. I need someone to remember what I'm supposed to be. That night, you go through the storage records. You sit with a candle and a stack of scrolls, reviewing deliveries, comparing names, weights, dates. And slowly, a pattern begins to emerge. There's a name that keeps showing up. Not one you recognize, not a priest or cook or server. Just a handler. A man who moves goods between buildings. Always in the background. Always just there. You circle it with charcoal. You stand. Because tomorrow you're going to meet him. And tomorrow, someone is going to answer for every slow sip and stolen thought. You're done waiting for poison to find you. You're going to find it first. His name is Casa, a handler, a mover of goods, a palace shadow in linen robes, invisible until you know what to look for. Not a cook, not a priest, not a guard, just a man who carries things from one place to another. And yet, his name appears on nearly every list of critical transfers over the last month. Spices, oils, wine, even kitchen tools. Always as the last pair of hands before items arrive at their destinations. Never supervised, never questioned. Because who would poison a man who doesn't taste the food? That's the brilliance of it. Casa has been touching everything without ever owning anything. He's the whisper between deliveries, the breeze between doors. You find him in the western storage hall just before midday, rolling a cart of sealed amphorae, alone. The room is wide and vaulted with racks of dried fish hanging like strange chandeliers above the clay floors. Dust motes drift lazily through slanted sunlight. Casa, you say, stepping into the doorway. He doesn't startle, which is your first clue. Instead, he sets down the cart handle and turns slowly. He's younger than you expected. Clean hands, calm eyes. I was wondering when you'd come, he says. Not if, not who are you, just when. You approach, slowly, noting the absence of guards. You deliberately come alone. Some conversations require the silence of risk. You've handled every shipment tied to a poisoning attempt, you say? Yes. You admit it. Of course. Why? He tilts his head. Why not? You stare at him. Do you want Pharaoh dead? He chuckles. I don't care whether he lives or dies. That takes the breath from your lungs. I care, he continues, that the game stays interesting. You're silent. Every palace, he says, is a board. Every servant, a piece. But the Pharaoh, he's both player and prize, too powerful to challenge directly, too sacred to scold. But if he fears his food, if he fears the breath between bites, he hesitates, and hesitation is an opportunity. You're trying to shake him? Not just him. Everyone. You, the guards, the cooks, the priests, especially the priests. He steps closer. They've gotten lazy, he says. They think power is permanent. They think the divine is insulated. But fear Fear renews the world, makes people alert, sharp, necessary. You take a step back, but not out of fear, out of realization. You're not an assassin, you say. No. You're an agitator. He smiles. That's better. Then why now? Why me? Why escalate? He shrugs. Because you survived longer than expected. You made it a story, and stories change rules. You feel your jaw clench. You've killed people. Collateral, he says. But they weren't the story. You are. You glance at the cart, the sealed amphorae. What's in those? He doesn't answer. So you walk forward and smash the first amphora. Wine. You lean in, inhale deeply. Grapes, oak, earth, and something else. Something wrong. Not poison. A musk. The wine has been treated, not to harm but to cover, to hide taste, to muffle subtle differences. That's worse than poison. That's sabotage of your senses. You step back and look at him. You've been dulling me. He bows slightly. You're too sharp, it was necessary. You don't speak again. You strike him. Once. Hard. Across the jaw. He stumbles but doesn't fall. He just looks up and wipes his mouth. I wondered if you would, he says. You think this is a game, you say. I think it's the game. You draw a dagger, not yours, but one borrowed from a cautious guard you bribed on the way. You press it against his throat. You'll confess. I already have. To Pharaoh, he smiles. And that's when you realise something deeper. He wants to be caught. You step back again. You're not the poisoner. He raises an eyebrow. You're the distraction. He grins wider. You turn and run. The high cook greets you at the kitchen gate, pale and wide-eyed. They just found a priest dead in the temple wing, he says, frothing at the mouth, scrolls clutched in his hands, a confession. You stop in your tracks. A real one? Looks like it. He named two others, a scribe, a servant. You look past him. And Casa? Vanished. Of course. You rush to the throne room. Pharaoh is already seated, reading, calm. Guards posted at every door. You're safe, you say breathlessly. He looks up. Why wouldn't I be? You kneel and explain everything. Casa, the amphorae, the mask, the distraction, the priest, the body, the letter. When you finish, Pharaoh doesn't speak. He just sets down the scroll and finally says, So it's war now? You nod. Yes. He leans back. Then we'll fight like kings. The next week's a chaos. Silent chaos. The kind that doesn't spill into streets but infects corridors like mildew. Every servant is vetted. Every scroll rescribed. Food is sealed under lock and key. No one eats anything untested. You expand your team, not by order but necessity. 3 junior tasters, all volunteers, each carefully chosen. They rotate shifts, and each is assigned to watch the others. You begin testing utensils, cups, plates, cloths, the air above the food. Because poison isn't about death anymore. It's about uncertainty, and the palace thrives on it. But so do you now. You've changed. You see it in the mirror, the way your posture has shifted, the way your eyes move constantly. You no longer eat for taste. You eat for information. Your mouth is your weapon, your stomach, your battlefield. One night, Pharaoh invites you to dine privately. Just the two of you. No guards, no fanfare. The meal is modest. Beans, garlic flatbread, fish, a single bowl of honeyed lentils. He gestures to the wine. I made this myself, he says. You blink. You cooked? Just once. I wanted to see what it's like. You lift the goblet. Sniff it. It smells of hibiscus and mint, and something else. Not poison. Effort. You sip. It's good. Really good. He watches your face. I wanted to thank you, he says. For what? For not dying. You laugh. A real one. He leans forward. What do you want, taster? You blink. Now? After all this? Yes. Name it. You think. You could ask for a title, a land, a wife, a name on a wall. Instead you say, a kitchen of my own, far from here, just bread and fish, and silence. He nods. One day, he says. But you know he's lying, because you'll never leave. Not really. You're part of this now, as essential as spice, as invisible as heat. You're not a man anymore. You're a mechanism, a hinge on which kings now turn, and you will stay alive, because no one else knows how to listen to food like you do, not with taste, with instinct. The morning you learn of the taster who died in another palace, it's a clear, cloudless day. The kind of day that should be gentle, golden, and without memory. But this news sticks to you. A letter arrives by pigeon. It's parchment folded and bound with the seal of the northern governor's court. You're called into Pharaoh's private chamber while he lounges beneath an awning, eating cold melon slices and casually feeding the skin to a lapdog that doesn't seem interested. He doesn't speak as you read the letter. He watches. The words are simple, sparse. Their taster fell after sampling pickled locust. No other symptoms until the third course, gone by nightfall, suspect liver failure, unsure if it was deliberate or dietary, awaiting advice. You fold the letter carefully, place it on the table. It's spreading, you say. Pharaoh nods. Or mimicking. There are only a few of you, really. Food tasters in royal courts. You're not a brotherhood. You're not friends. But you're part of a thin, invisible network that spans palaces like threads across a map. When one of you dies, the others feel it like a silent bell tolling beneath the skin. Later that day, you take a walk through the kitchens. Not for duty, but out of a restless need to see things. Touch jars, lift lids, breathe in spices, hear the familiar grind of mortar and pestle. There's safety in repetition, but something's changed. The staff have become too quiet. Every movement is stiff. The tension that once hummed beneath the surface now presses outward, visible in the hunched shoulders and tight-lipped glances. You step beside the head baker who's kneading dough with a rhythm that's too aggressive to be about bread alone. "Is it that obvious?" he mutters. "Yes," you say. He sighs. "We're waiting for someone else to die." You don't correct him. The next day, a dog collapses in the hallway after stealing a date tart from a servant's tray. It whimpers once, then lies still. You're called immediately. The kitchen is locked down. The tart is confiscated. You dissect the remaining batch. Slice them open with a copper knife. Smell each ingredient. Dip your pinky into the date mash and taste the smallest amount. It's good, sweet, nutty, complex, and, after several long minutes, safe. But the dog still died. It's possible it choked. Possible it was old. It's also possible it was the test before the test. You send a quiet message to the temple apothecary. Check the animal's blood. Look for liver rot, for paralysis, for signs of tampering, quietly. That night the moon rises full and enormous. You lie in bed staring at the silver shape on the ceiling. You realise you've memorised the phases of the moon, not for spiritual reasons, but because the poisonings increase at the new moon. Superstition maybe, but patterns too. Rituals like those used by priests or bitter old scribes who believe the darkness hides what the sun refuses to forgive. You finally sleep. You dream you're sitting at the royal banquet alone, while every dish on the table speaks in whispers only you can hear. This one's safe. This one's not. This one wants you to think it's safe. This one has missed you. You wake with your hand covering your mouth. The dog died of natural causes. The apothecary says so. You believe him. But the timing is cruel. In response, Pharaoh shuts down public meals for the week. No banquets. No small feasts. No informal terrace tastings. No food shared in public. Every dish is to be eaten in privacy with one taster. You. It isolates him. But it isolates you more, because now you're always alone with the food. No witnesses, no chatter, just silence, broken only by your own chewing and the Pharaoh's slow, methodical watching. At first you both speak during the meals, casual remarks, the weather, a noble's latest scandal, a priest who tripped in the bathhouse. Then he stops talking altogether. And so do you. It becomes a performance of silence, a ritual of glances, a test of wills. You chew, you swallow, you wait, you survive. He watches, he nods, he eats, and neither of you says a word. On the fourth day, you find something. A fig that smells wrong, just barely. You roll it in your hand, squeeze it gently. The skin is taut, too taut. You slice it open with your thumbnail. The inside is pale, almost green. You bring it to your nose. Almond, just a trace. So faint it could be imagined. You take it to the high cook. He sniffs, shrugs. Could be the storage room. Might have picked up scent from nearby jars. You take it to a temple priest. He frowns. Could be natural fermentation. You take it to the apothecary. He lights a candle, holds the fig over it, waits. The skin blisters. A new smell rises. Oil of bitter seed. He looks at you. It's not enough to kill, but it's not nothing. You nod. Someone's testing again. Or learning. You take the fig to Pharaoh. He listens to the story, then reaches out and pops it into his mouth before you can stop him. He chews, slowly, smiling. You stare, speechless. Then he swallows. "I'm still here," he says. "Why would you do that?" you whisper. He leans forward. "Because they need to know I'm not afraid." You shake your head. "Majesty, that's not bravery. That's bait." He grins. "Exactly." That night you walk alone through the garden, the torches flickering on the white stone, the scent of night blossoms sweet and overwhelming. You think about the figure, the almost poison, the message. You wonder if you should leave. You know you never will, because this isn't about duty anymore. This is about finish lines, about seeing how far a body can go before it stops trusting itself. You sit on a bench beneath a fig tree and let the silence grow long and soft around you. Then you begin drafting your own notes, your own records. Because if the day ever comes that you don't survive the bite, someone needs to know where it started, where the patterns were, what names kept showing up, who always arrived 5 minutes early, who never tasted their own food, who stopped using the vinegar rinse on their cups. You write until your fingers cramp, then you fold the parchment, seal it, and place it beneath your sleeping mat, just in case. The next morning, everything feels too quiet. You walk to the kitchens and find only 2 staff there, both washing trays with silent diligence. No greetings, no glances. They act like you're not even there. The high cook is gone, the head server is gone. You ask where they are, no one answers. You check the pantry, the wine room, the dry storage. They've vanished, no blood, no note, just gone. You walk to Pharaoh's chamber. He's eating fruit alone. "I didn't order it," he says, lifting a slice of melon. "I know." "They're being punished," he adds. "For what?" "For forgetting that fear must be active, not reactive." You sit, exhausted. "This will never stop," you say. "No," he agrees. You nod, and then taste the melon. It's sweet, cool, no bitterness. But your stomach turns anyway. You're not sure when the job stopped being about food. There was a time, not that long ago really, when your world was made of flavours and textures. Sour from unripened grapes, richness in duck liver, that fleeting sweetness that comes from a perfectly preserved date. You used to think about mouthfeel, about balance, about what pairs well with pomegranate reduction. Now you walk into rooms and look at hands, not plates. You measure silence more than spice. You notice who's sweating before the first course, who holds a cup too long, who eats with only their left hand. The food is still there, but it's not what you're tasting anymore. Not really. You're tasting intent. And lately, everything has that aftertaste of threat. This morning, you chew your breakfast mechanically, flatbread and pickled onion, and scribble down a list of names. Not suspects exactly, just people you've noticed. The scribe who no longer eats at the staff table, the court dancer who insists on preparing her own honeyed milk, the assistant steward whose shoes were recently dusted with an herbal trace used in embalming fluids. None of it is proof, not on its own. But you've learned that danger in the palace doesn't arrive like a storm. It creeps like mould. It rots from within. Later that morning, a small group of officials arrives from Thebes, envoys of grain, scribes with ledgers, temple functionaries pretending not to be spies. They're shown to guest quarters. A midday meal is arranged in the West Wing, private and formal. You're asked to taste each course ahead of their arrival. You do. Each dish is immaculate. Roasted lamb with sesame, lentil and leek mash, pomegranate syrup drizzled over warm bread. You take your time, more out of habit than hunger. Everything tastes fine, but the wine, that's different. The moment it touches your tongue, you feel the sting. Not sharp, not immediate, but a cold twist at the root of your teeth. Like something trying to disguise itself as sweetness. You swirl it in your mouth, then spit. You rinse your mouth with vinegar. Again, and again. You summon the wine steward. His face pales as soon as he sees your expression. "No," he says. "Yes. I tasted it myself this morning." You shake your head. "Not from this jar." He freezes. "There was a second shipment?" "Of course there was." You grab the jar, unstopper it, and pour some into a bowl. It's red as blood, fragrant, floral. You dip a reed and smear it onto a sheet of linen. The colour seeps through like ink. You wait, watch. No change. Then you add heat. You light a small flame beneath the cloth. At first nothing. Then an oily shimmer, a scent, familiar and wrong. Rose, vinegar, something. Metallic. You frown. Oil of white hemlock. It's ancient, rare, and almost impossible to detect in liquids. But not to you, not anymore. The banquet is cancelled, quietly. The guests are told Pharaoh is in prayer, that the gods have demanded a fast. They grumble, but they accept it. Behind the scenes, you gather your team, your 3 junior tasters, the apothecary, the high cook, returned and very much alive though gaunt, and a single guard whom you trust because he once vomited from fear before eating a suspicious lentil. This is organised, you tell them. This is no longer about guessing or gambling. Someone's testing our perimeter. Was it meant for Pharaoh, one asks? You shake your head. Not this time. That wine was intended for them. The Theban delegation. A diplomatic message. We can reach you even here. Why would someone do that? The young taster murmurs. Because fear isn't enough anymore, you say. Now they want chaos. Later that night, you find yourself alone in the Hall of Paintings. A long corridor of murals depicting Pharaoh's victories, gods bestowing crowns, rivers overflowing with bounty. It's meant to inspire reverence. Instead, it exhausts you. You lean against a pillar and let the cool stone touch your back. You're tired, not just in your bones, but in the strange way your mind has begun to slow. Not dullness, just too much. Too many flavours, too many patterns, too many possibilities. Paranoia is not a state of mind anymore. It's a professional necessity. You close your eyes and see tables. Endless tables. With you seated alone, fork in hand, surrounded by shadows. Each plate whispers, "What if this is the one?" Pharaoh visits you just before midnight. No guards, no formal summons, just a knock. You open the door, startled to see him dressed in a simple robe, hair unbraided, sandals worn thin. "You look worse than I do," he says. "I'm doing your worrying for you." He smiles faintly. "Then I owe you more than I thought." You step aside. He walks in and sits, not at the low table, but on your bed, like an old friend. "I remember when you first came," he says. "You were quiet, quick, careful. I thought you'd last a week." "So did I." He leans forward, elbows on knees. "Do you ever wish you'd said no?" You laugh. "To being a food taster?" "To surviving." You look at him. "I think about it," you admit, "but I don't regret it." "Why not?" "Because I'm still useful," he nods. "And when you're not?" You pause, then say, "Then I'll start tasting for myself." He grins. "You always were smarter than the others." He stands to leave, then turns at the door. "Be ready," he says. "For what?" "For the moment they stop testing and start serving." Me. 3 days later, the kitchen receives a mysterious delivery. No sender, no markings. Just a large sealed basket tied with palm rope and stuffed with aromatic herbs. Inside, bread, cheese, honey, a fig cake, and a small sealed jug of wine. You order everything separated, dissected, disassembled. You taste each ingredient in isolation. Nothing. But the combination, the wine with the cheese, the bread with the honey, it changes everything. Together they activate a subtle chemical shift. You notice it immediately. Your tongue begins to tingle. Your pulse skips. Not death, but destabilization. You spit. Again. Washington. Again. You test the mixture on a mouse. It convulses. Dies in 20 minutes. You send no warning, no alarm. You just write 2 names on a parchment and walk it to Pharaoh yourself. He reads it. Nods. Quiet? Always. The next morning the head baker is gone, and so is the assistant apothecary. No explanation, no need. It becomes routine, a kind of brutal elegance. You detect, you name. He removes. Each time more refined, less mess. They stop trying to kill Pharaoh and start trying to wear you down. Deliberate near misses, taints that don't quite tip the scale, spices that flirt with thresholds, false positives, hallucinations. You know they're not trying to win. They're trying to break your confidence, but you're still here. You still chew, still swallow, still wait for the twist in your gut that never comes. Until one day it does. It's a simple dish. Fish, lentils, a touch of garlic oil. But as you chew, you feel it. A curl of heat behind the eyes. The room tilts just slightly. Your hand trembles. Your tongue goes numb. You breathe, count, focus. You stand, walk to the basin, force your fingers down your throat, vomit, and collapse. You wake in the temple wing, wrapped in linen. The priestess Neferura sits beside you. She doesn't speak, just hands you water. You drink, slowly, and say, "I missed it." She shakes her head. "Number, you caught it. You survived." You try to sit up. "Who sent it?" "We don't know yet." You nod. "Accept it." But your hands are shaking. You've never felt the poison before, only danced near it. Now it's in you, and it's a reminder. You're not immune, you're just lucky, and luck doesn't last. That night Pharaoh visits again. He sits beside your bed, says nothing for a long while, then, "You were right. It's not about food anymore." You nod. He takes your hand. "You've given me years I wasn't meant to have." You try to speak. He shakes his head. "Rest." You close your eyes, and for once, you sleep deeply, without dreams.